The title of the world's busiest airport has belonged to Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport for many years. The airport, named in honor of former mayors William B. Hartsfield and Maynard Jackson, is the primary mega hub of Delta Airlines and a focus city for Frontier and Southwest. Hartsfield-Jackson has consistently been the busiest airport for passenger traffic for the last 2 decades and spans 4,700 acres just south of Atlanta's downtown. This video will discuss the piloting experience at the world's busiest passenger airport and highlight some interesting operational points. So, if you're ready, let's get started. Atlanta's airport uses simple yet inventive architecture to help move more passengers than any other airport. In 2007, Atlanta was one of the first airports worldwide to open an end-around taxiway to increase traffic flow. Specifically, Taxiway Victor was built so that planes could bypass the inboard runway on the airport's north side. The outboard runway, 8 left/26 right, is used almost exclusively for landing, while the inboard runway, 8 right/26 left, is used for departures. In the past, pilots had to wait many minutes before receiving runway crossing instructions after landing. This resulted in lots of dead time and reduced traffic flow, since departures would have to be held every so often to allow a group of arrivals to cross the runway. Victor bypasses the runway, allowing for unbridled departures off 8 right/26 left. The Victor taxiway was so successful that Atlanta's Airport Authority built an identical runway bypass on the south side of the field. Planes that land on 9 right/27 left and 10/28 can taxi around the inboard runway 9 left/27 right on the Whiskey Loop, which was built to resemble the Victor Loop. Both of these phrases are approved standard taxi phraseology that pilots and controllers use when issuing and reading back operational instructions. Another interesting tidbit about Atlanta's layout is that the far southern runway, 10/28, is the only operational runway, not including taxiways, that is built over a motorway or freeway. The 9,000-foot or 2,743-meter grooved concrete runway passes over the Interstate 285, one of the 3 primary arterial roadways in the Atlanta metro. The I-285 is 11 lanes wide where it crosses under the east side of runway 10/28. Although noticeable to drivers on the freeway, pilots can only notice a freeway underneath them after landing on runway 10 while on the Sierra Gulf taxiway. The tall trees, buildings, and general focus required while flying make the highway overpass go unnoticed by most pilots. Atlanta has more standard taxi routes than nearly every other airport globally. Standard taxi routes were discussed in an article on our website earlier this year about Dallas-Fort Worth International, another truly massive and busy airport. Atlanta, like DFW, has many planes operating simultaneously, necessitating standard routes. This enables controllers to issue a 3 to 4 word clearance that conveys a multi-sentence instruction. Atlanta has no fewer than 10 standard taxi routes. The ones controllers use depend on which way traffic is flowing at the airport. After pilots land on the far southern runway 28, they might be told to taxi via the Pink West route. This indicates the pilots should vacate 28 to the right, then taxi on Sierra Gulf, make a left on Sierra Charlie, and switch to another tower frequency on the radio. They continue by turning left on Romeo, then hold short of 27 left at the end and await further instruction. From there, a controller can issue another standard instruction, such as taxi via the Whiskey Loop, as we already discussed. Again, this allows Atlanta controllers to issue a mere 3 instructions: Pink West, cross 27 left, Whiskey Loop, to move an aircraft across nearly 3 miles of pavement. Talk about efficiency. If you've been a passenger departing Atlanta, you might have noticed that you almost always push off the gate and stop at a 45-degree angle to the terminal building and taxiway. This is unlike most other airports where the push is stopped when the plane is parallel to the taxiway. Atlanta ramp controllers issue this instruction to, quote, push tail north/south at a 45. This allows more planes to access gates and push back at a given time. With such a high traffic volume, every ounce of pavement must be used efficiently. Boeing 757-300s and planes larger than it cannot push at a 45 because their length would restrict planes from utilizing the parallel taxiways on the ramp. These planes push straight back onto the line. Speaking of ramps, Atlanta has an astounding 9 of them. The largest ramps are 1 to 5. Each is a two-way combination of the gates facing that alleyway. For example, Ramp 2 is a combo of the east side of the A concourse gate and the west side of the B concourse gate. Each ramp has a dedicated non-FAA controller directing traffic on it. After landing, pilots don't bother telling the ground controller which gate they're going to at the airport. Instead, they tell ATC which ramp they are scheduled to park at. The ramps at Atlanta are yet another example of a well-organized machine. Unlike many other airports, there are few traffic jams on the ramps in Atlanta because they function like two-way streets. Even if a plane has just pushed back and is blocking one side of the alley, the controllers are savvy enough to stagger pushed planes so that arrivals can cross to the other side of the ramp to continue to their gate. Because of this, Atlanta has some of the best on-to-in time ratings in the US for such a massive airport. On-to-in is one of a few key metrics airlines use to determine a flight's total block time or what is advertised to customers. On-to-in is the time it takes from landing to parking. Similarly, out to off is the time from pushback to takeoff, and off to on is the flight time. These 3 times compose a flight's block time. Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson is a leader in both out-to-off and on-to-in metrics, a significant measure in Delta's on-time success. One final piece about Atlanta is how quirky some of the arrivals and departures waypoint names are. In particular, Atlanta's SIDS and stars nod to fiction pieces from George Lucas and J.R.R. Tolkien. A sampling of waypoint names from some procedures are Frodo, Bilbo, Gondor, Mordor, and Hobbit, elements of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings by Tolkien. Likewise, Star Wars references abound on the Jedi 3 arrival, including New Hope, Death Star, Chewie, X-Wing, Ewok, and TIE Fighter. It's fun for pilots and controllers alike to reference and identify waypoints with intentional names from recognizable fiction series. So, to wrap it all up, although it's the busiest airport in the world, Atlanta earns a nod from many pilots for being one of the most thoroughly constructed, at least from an operational standpoint. This should not be conflated with anything specific to the passenger experience. Yes, everything about Atlanta's design is meant to keep planes moving efficiently and safely, ideals at the heart of all modern airport designs. The operations take a bit of getting used to for pilots, but once the field's quirks are known, it's a pretty easy place to operate in and out of. What have your experiences been when flying in and out of this airport? Share your experiences by leaving a comment. Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights, visit simpleflying.com.